Yeah, so we were warned, impassable to non-hikers. It is indeed impassable.
There's more to Silver Falls State Park, the one located east of Salem, Oregon, than just a bunch of waterfalls. There are also some trails that you are allowed to ride your mountain bike on. This is a state park, so obviously the main parking lot is going to get crowded on the weekends, especially in the warmer months. Luckily, you don't have to park at the main lot, as there are a few other trailheads throughout the park, but you do need to have a parking pass, so if you didn't find one ahead of time, you'll need to swing by the main lot anyway to pick up a pass at the kiosk. There are a few different routes you can ride in this park, but there is one obvious region of the park that's targeted at mountain bikers. We were gluttons for punishment, so we started in the more hiker-focused region of the park. As we ride through the stroller paths to the single track, I'd like to take this moment to remind you to navigate to patreon.com/voiceovertrails to support informational content if you're finding reviews like this helpful. Eventually, the stroller paths took us to the campground, which was empty as we rode through in early February. We exited the campground by turning right on the road and then left up the Racket Ridge access trail. Now, there's a right and a wrong way to turn at this intersection a little ways up the trail. The correct course of action is to proceed forward onto the relatively new alignment known as Roamers, which is not what we did. We went left up the old trail, which is punishingly steep and should be avoided by all users at all costs. Roamers has more turns in it and is obviously designed to follow a more sustainable pathway up the hill. The Perimeter Trail access trail, the alignment that we rode, is just an old logging road grade, a road grade from the bad old days when they didn't think about sustainability when they graded roads. It's horrible. Fortunately, there's another intersection with Roamers. At this intersection, we left the Perimeter Access Trail of torture and joined the Roamers Trail of sustainability. It was much better and 100% preferable to the painful alternative. Roamers joins with the Perimeter Trail at this intersection. At 5 miles long, it should come as no surprise that the Perimeter Trail traverses the perimeter of Silver Falls State Park. From this intersection, the trail starts out with a much-needed downhill break. It has decent tread, and the forest is standard Western Oregon Cascades, Doug fir and hemlock wet tree wonderland forest. The Perimeter Trail is not a bike trail. It is a trail that bicycles are allowed to ride. That means it has some pretty steep switchbacks and sharp turns with marginal sightlines. This is a really good trail to ride at a leisurely pace for maximized enjoyment of the woods themselves, the actual woods. This is not a good trail for shredding the gnar. Upon arrival at this intersection, there was a sign informing us that the trail is impassable to non-hikers. We disregarded the sign and we were punished for our arrogance. This blown down tree was but a preview of greater suffering to come. This deep, muddy section wasn't what made this trail impassable. This annoying blowdown also wasn't what made the trail impassable, although it was certainly challenging. In fact, if I were being strictly pedantic about this, in the most literal sense, this trail was not, in fact, impassable. We did pass. We made it through, but it was horrible. What should have taken 10 to 15 minutes easily took over an hour and left me pretty exhausted. Listen to the state park staff when they tell you something is impassable. They're just trying to save you from having a bad time. On a day when the trail is clear, after the park staff has had a chance to clear all the blowdown from snow and ice storms, the Perimeter Trail looks like it would be a fun little trail that gives a nice tour of some lesser-known parts of a frequently visited state park. It would be a lovely trail to ride on a hardtail just for the purpose of, once again, enjoying the woods. The trail we were really interested in riding was the Catamount Trail, as that's the one that was built by mountain bikers, but we had to detour around the top of the Catamount Trail as the upper Catamount Trail traverses a part of the forest that burned very recently. Upon seeing this orange gate, having just experienced what happens when you disregard warnings from park staff, we opted not to try our luck again. The detour incorporates the Buck Mountain Loop, which is mostly just an old logging road with a lot of pointless ups and downs, but it does skirt the edges of the big forest fires that raged through here a couple years back. It also had its own blowdown problems the day we rode it. Eventually, the Buck Mountain Loop trail intersects with the Catamount Trail here at this helpful little signpost. From the signpost, it's just a short little jaunt down the hill to where the upper Catamount Trail intersects with the lower Catamount Trail. Hopefully the upper trail will reopen soon so I can go check that out and see what's up there one of these days. I'd like to say that from here it was a refreshing downhill jaunt to the parking lot, but that's not how this went down. while this trail certainly does trend in a downward fashion in one direction, it is most decisively a rolling cross-country trail. This is all firmly and resolutely hardtail-friendly terrain. A lot of work was put into this trail, and it is built to a very high standard. The turns are correctly built with adequate radius, and the sight lines are all open. There are some jibs snuck into the margins, but there are not skill filtering features that would make this trail exclusive to any single user group. Beginners would find this trail challenging, but intermediate and advanced riders will not be challenged. Overall, it's not a surprising trail to find in a state park, but still way better than what one might expect given what one often finds in most state parks, if that makes any sense. Just don't come here expecting an exciting downhill shred, because that is absolutely not what this trail provides. Bring your hardtail, climbing legs, and some patience, and you will have a pretty darned good time. The bottom of the Catamount Trail joins up with the Newt Loop, a green trail that is built specifically by and for mountain bikers as part of a skills development area. There aren't really enough trails like this around, so I'm glad to see it here. It's not exactly ideal that you have to drive to Salem to get a decent skill development area anywhere within driving distance of Portland, but here it is. At least it's closer than driving to Seattle or Bend. Seriously, we need more places like this in every town. It's a nicely graded, hard-packed trail with open turns and nice little rollers to get beginning mountain bikers used to undulating terrain. This is precisely what a beginner needs when they're starting out, a mile or two of trail they can ride without needing to get off the bike for something scary. From the Newt Loop, there's a skills station, with varied levels of jumps, rollers, turns, and other features to practice on that eventually leads to a trail called 29 Turns, which is a fantastic trail to practice riding tight switchbacks on. Of all the skills a beginner to intermediate mountain biker should practice, I think switchbacks should be one of the biggest priorities. It's nice to be able to climb and descend a hiking trail without needing to put a foot down. The bottom of the skills center joins up with the top of the aptly named Rabbit Hole Trail, which drops 300 feet down the sides of a narrow canyon through a series of switchbacks to the banks of Smith Creek on the Howard Creek Loop Trail. The cool stuff on this loop is actually on the other side of the creek, but winter sunset was on its way, so we didn't have time to go explore the big trees over there. This is back in the tourist section of the park, so keep an eye out and ride slowly through here, especially if it's summertime, which is the peak season. If you've got a beginner friend, bring them here. If you're already renting a cabin down here for the weekend, bring your bike. But unless you live in Salem or the vicinity, there's much more exciting riding within the same amount of drive time. Regardless, I'm glad this place exists, and it's exciting to see mountain biking incorporated into one of Oregon's premier state parks. I'd like to take this moment to thank all my Patreon supporters, especially my Low Me Goodness level sponsors Andy Suri, Charles Kim, Damon Corey, Randy Relithford, and Ty Morgan Marbett. I'd also like to thank my Hero Dirt level sponsors, earning their special mention at the end of this video: Bryce Ulrich, Heather Van Valkenburg, Jason Moore, and Pedro Cantarini. If you'd like to support informational content like this while joining these specimens of human generosity, navigate to patreon.com/voiceovertrails and choose a contribution level that seems right for you. Now, get out there and go ride your bike.